Well, hello there. Let's see if anyone's actually here. Alright, yeah, sure, go on Tamsin. We've got 7 people watching. That's not too bad for an off day. It is warm here. Not particularly warm temperature-wise. I think it's about 29 degrees Celsius. But it always feels a little hotter here when we get that kind of weather because the houses are built to retain heat. So obviously we have to work in an office building that's designed to maintain heat. Usually there's not many days of the year where it's super warm. And usually most people are on holidays. Let's see. I want to double check this is actually live because I just got an error. Alright, no, I am going live. Okay. Can people in the chat confirm getting picture and audio, please? Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, just my studio here had an error for a second, so I wanted to double check. Let's clean this mess up just for a second and put this into place. Let's just move these out of sight for a little bit. I think will be the easiest thing, and put the top on. And here we have, let's isolate that, turn that off. Maybe we'll even switch the lighting on so you can get a good view of what I think I'm calling the Aurochs barge. So this would be a variant, a larger cousin of the Ox Starlifter. You can see these new engines. Maybe we can even get a little bit more screen real estate here. And I have to remember, I also have a video. I guess I'm pointing at myself. I have a video up here. How's everyone doing on this fine Monday? I hope it's not as hot for you guys. Il Lupo Cativo says, hello and happy Monday to anyone. I like that. Anyone. How's it going, Ben? Still burned out? Yes, I'm going to be burned out until I have some holidays, I think. But I am going to have to continue a little bit. Things are shaking up a little bit. You might hear some huffs, some giggles, some weird noises. And that would be because Alden is back in the office. A round of applause for Alden. Woo! Off camera, of course. Finishing up the final deliveries for Asia Fleet is the priority for Alban now. Meanwhile, I'm trying to finish up both the Tribes release for next month, which is what we're going to be looking at today, and also getting Expendable finished and ready. So yeah, maybe we should just address the burnout thing. This is, I don't want to say it's anyone's fault in particular. I have my own responsibility. It's also just a circumstance of, you know, what the market looks like. I do have some responsibility in the sense of I maybe got a bit excited about Expendable and we grew the scope. You know, I think I underestimated how many work hours we had to work on it, the timing of holidays and whatnot. So I think, for example, had we done this campaign and we didn't have any backlog of outstanding work to do, if Alban wasn't, you know, working on a film, an animated feature film, for, you know, half the time of the week and all of that, then getting Expendable out on the original date may not have been such an issue. But there are a couple of factors I didn't take into effect, and Expendable has also meant that I haven't been able to work on Persephone. And there's a lot of tough decisions that I'm going to have to make. A big part of, I don't want to discuss the details of it, but I do have some stuff going on in my personal life that has affected my mental health to a certain degree. I think everyone has their own struggles. In particular, just some heavy stuff to deal with, really. And nothing that I can't handle in the long run, but it does affect performance. There have been, interruptions. Sometimes I can't work full work days. And I'm in this position of I've been running a business for a long period of time, and it gets frustrating at this time of year because, for example, my wife's work, she has annual races, which are the, I think, second largest races in Sweden, as far as this is the uh, 10. I'm forgetting, blank on what it's called in Swedish, but it is horse and buggy racing, which is bigger than the gallops in this country. And she has these huge races, which means for the 4 to 8 weeks before we can have holidays. We always have to have it at the end of summer. And I do think it's important because everyone needs to sort of recharge the batteries on occasion. But it always ends up happening that I'm prepping for a campaign, she's got her big races going, and it's just a whole bunch of stress where I need to be at home some of the time to look after our person. And yeah, it just gets really intense and stressful. And on top of that, I've had all of these other projects. So, we're trying something new, working with one-page rules with the StarQuest system, licensing under them. Hopefully there's a new audience to meet, but there's a lot new to learn about using their system, making it fit and work with our models, which is less hard. But the way we wanted to do Expendable, normally when you're laying out a StarQuest board, you're not actually too focused on the details of layout. Here, I'm kind of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, so to speak. Although I would say at least I've gotten the square peg to be chamfered at this point. Which I guess is a slight modeling joke. So for anyone that's not familiar with chamfering, rather than this being like squarish, because we've gotten the edges off here, that's what we call a chamfer in modeling anyway. So for example, you might not have a perfect rectangle. It might have like rounded edges, or just a chamfered edge. So yeah, basically just a lot going on. And I think I had both convinced myself and John, actually I guess I gaslit myself, that the 15th of July was actually a Wednesday, not a Tuesday. And we kind of came to the realization that not only was it a Tuesday, but it's the day that John goes back to America. And he's there unsafe at the moment. But I think we were a little bit too ambitious in dreaming that we would have all of this out and ready, because a frontier means release. And I'm already burning the candle at both ends. And it's too much pressure. So ultimately, we looked at the finances. It's going to be very tight for us. We're going to be quite dependent on, getting the frontier released when we can on the 14th of August. But moving it back a month means I don't get to take as many holidays, but that we can give the campaign the time and effort that it needs so that we have a better product to put out and not something that's half finished. And I will still get some time off. I might have to take some more time off later in the year to compensate for that. But it's just one of those things where it can be incredibly frustrating running your own business, where you've got this rather stressful burn rate, let's just say. I'm not only responsible for myself, but also making sure that, Albin, Lieselot, and John are also, taken care of. so that we can, that all fits into the budget. And I don't want to let anyone down. And we've succeeded for several years to make sure that, that didn't happen. But it's just one of those things where, and it's not going to happen, but the consequence is my mental and to a lesser degree my physical health, because I'm a stress eater and that's not healthy. And it's not been healthy for a long time. So I don't want to do Persephone this year anymore. And the reason for that, aside from the fact that Mick, I know he has several animation projects that he needs to do, stop motion stuff that would be in the same studio that we would want to be in for the Persephone landing sequence. Even if we put that campaign out in late October, it's too late in the year. It would be so stressed to push through. And to me, it makes more sense to pitch doing GridForge deck plans for Traveller at the end of the year, rather than pushing for Persephone to be finished and utterly destroying myself in the process. Because it's not meant to, it's meant to be a magnum opus of sorts, or at least that's the way I visualized it. And anything less than putting the work in that I feel it's needed will mean that I can't do that. So if it means it needs to be delayed to be that thing, we also have done a little bit of soul searching. Or rather, I've talked to John a lot, I've talked to Hannes, just sort of like bouncing ideas back and forth. I would have talked to Alvin, but he was on holidays, and holidays are sacred in this country, which means I don't believe you should be contacting your employees until it's time for them to come back. If you can absolutely avoid it, you should. And I think I did a pretty decent job of that, didn't I, Alvin?
Absolutely.
Yes.
The first 3 weeks were excellent for recovery for my case.
Good. So there's a lot of different factors here. And then the other thing too is, after doing some soul searching, I really hate that we still have outstanding work on Asia Fleet. We still have outstanding physical models on Fifth Frontier War. Now those are going into production as we speak. But it doesn't look good. It looks like we're coming back asking for more money before, we've delivered what we've already promised. And in part that's just due to planning on my part. Failures in planning, I should say. And in part it's just, that things have turned out a certain way. Like, we launch campaigns when we need to make sure that we don't have to close down or, make some serious decisions. And I have to say, Alvin getting to work on a feature film, and the way that Tribes has grown, the way that our sales have steadily increased, it's really made a huge difference to offload things. But moving forward, we want to start looking towards just doing one massive Kickstarter per year, and then focusing on Tribes, sustaining ourselves on, building on what we already have, rather than, coming back constantly asking for people to invest a lot in Second Dynasty. And I know that I'm talking to a lot of people that have very happily and generously donated. Well, I guess it's not donation, because you guys are getting the product we're working on, and you believe in the product. But it is just one of those things that it's a small company. It's a very niche market. There's so niche that the smallest change in the sort of like the environment, the whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's some fancy suit lizard speak version of describing it, but the market itself is very sensitive to change. Like, for example, the US dollar is slowly going down compared to the Swedish crown, compared to the euro. That's affecting our bottom line every single time that change shifts. That means that we're making 5, 10, 15% less money than we were last year. And there's not much we can do about that. In addition, new companies come on the market trying to make it in this space. At the same time, there are new people entering the hobby. And that's why we keep trying to innovate and change and do a few different things. But sometimes it can really get to you knowing that not every product is going to appeal to everyone. That there's a finite number of people that, people could lose work, or they lose interest in the hobby. They stop playing physically. Or, they can't justify yet another spaceship. There's a lot of factors that add to it, and we've been doing this now since 2017, so what, 8 years? Although it feels like 18 at this point, because I can't even remember pre-pandemic at this point. It seems like, geez, what were we complaining about before then? So there's just I've got a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. And look, we're not going to, barring something massive, probably if something happened to me that I couldn't continue to work, then we'd be in trouble. And that's what I really need to think about. That's what this sort of delay is about, even though it means I'm going to work more, not less, in the short term. Hopefully that translates to a successful campaign and buys us the breathing room so that we can realign. But I feel like I've been having this conversation at this time of the year for at least the last 5 years. And it's really wearing me down on top of everything else I have to deal with in my life. And yeah, just the decision had to be made for my own sanity. There's been too many, 6 and 7 day work weeks in the last few months. But that does continue a little bit with this ship. Sorry, I'm going to look at the chat a little bit. I know I've been sort of talking to the camera, so it might be nice to see what you guys are saying. All right. Let's see. It's cold and rainy where Mon Capitan is. Tamsin says, "Hi, Alvin. Did you have a good break?" I think.
Oh, yeah. It was great.
He came back nice and tan. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Il Lupo says, "I'm sorry to hear that, but I feel for you. Before my grandmother, well, all the family were broken because we had to take care of her, and it was difficult." Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry they have to deal with that. I got to check myself because I have a history of oversharing, and that's also a part of it. I don't want to go into details about that at this point in time. But yeah. Shergol says, "At least you are being on the bevel with us," which I'm sure is not a spelling mistake, but a pun. Tamsin confirms this by saying, "Oh dear, Shergol started with the puns already. Oh no, Shergol. Ecosystem is the lizard speak word I was looking for. Thank you, Shergol. And will justify a new ship with my wife as an adventure by itself." Yes, indeed. It would be interesting to do some research to see how many people actually admit to their wives how many spaceships they've bought. But you know what? It brings me so much joy and pleasure to see that there are people that genuinely, like, I did make a post the other day, and maybe, damn it, I should have really, let's see, does this work? I'm going to try and shuffle some things around. No, I can't because I'm on stream. Wait, I can change windows temporarily. Let me get the close-up camera so I can move some stuff around, because I don't want to show my Discord for obvious reasons. because of all of the adult content on it. No. Privacy reasons and whatnot. So we'll get into this ship, I promise, in just a second, but I just wanted to go over the context here because what I wrote to the community was as such. I apologize, guys, if you've already read this or heard it, or you feel like I've already communicated this in the 20 minutes I've already been yawning. But the long and short of it is we're delaying Expendable until the 14th of August. After a tough decision, not helped by the fact that I thought we were releasing Wednesday, not tomorrow, again. We are delaying Expendable, a GridForge adventure, until August 14th. There's a confluence of factors affecting this decision, but I want to be transparent with you all so you understand the reasoning. So I talked about the bad timing. Look, some of it was like when we were in France and talking to my mini factory. My mini factory gave us the impression. Now, to be fair to the team, they said, I don't think there's anything on marketing for July 15th. This turned out not to be the case. We realized a week before launch that there was actually a sponsored My Mini Factory campaign launching on that day, which meant that the front page, a lot of their natural traffic would be directed towards that. Just makes us that much harder to see. It also was when John was heading back to the States, so pretty bad timing. Then I talked about the burnout, which I feel like I did talk about for the most part just now, although I didn't also mention the fact that this project was meant to be Albin's brainchild, and I kind of took it from him at a certain point. So he came up with the idea to do the sort of adventure side of things, and I sort of took it and ran with it. And we kind of did realize like that was necessary at the time because he was at Doku's half of the time and had to work on the ACF Fleet stuff as well. So, but yeah, I took over, and the scope kind of probably expanded a bit beyond what it would have been if Albin was given the instructions. Hey, do this, this, and this. And then, yeah, of course, the optics regarding ACF Fleet. We need to get that finished, done and dusted. I feel the Fifth Frontier War is kind of a separate thing because it's the physical. Technically, it is John's company, but the delays are unfortunate, and it is going to be harder to come back to Traveller fans later in the year and say, hey, support us again for something. Although the lesson we've learned for the meantime is we're going to stay away from physical for the near future, at least until everything is cleared. So our plans for Traveller moving forward are STL based. We do have some interesting stuff we're discussing with Mongoose and maybe someone else. But yeah, it's that would be instead of Persephone, I feel. And we've also been talking about, hey, what could we do with Tribes and Traveller? We've been talking about that for a long time. And then finally, it's simply not ready yet. We tried to get it all printed in time. We wouldn't have had everything done. Yeah, just if John had been here 2 weeks longer, I think we still would have had to delay it. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, maybe it wasn't incredibly necessary to read a part of that, considering the fact that we've already covered a lot of it. But I appreciate you guys being patient, and I've just realized yes, I did switch the camera back. Okay, it's my feed that was delayed. So, yeah, you have nowhere to hide your hobbies from. Well, that is a benefit. That is a benefit. So what are we looking at? Let's talk about some modeling instead, because this is a bit exciting. So the downside of Tribes, and one of the reasons why I avoided doing, Patreon-based work for a long time, is because I knew that when you have to put something out every single month, it's hard to take a break from that, especially when the content is dependent on that. So I've worked hard to kind of shield us a little bit from that, even though we are generating more and more Tribes content. But, I can always count on Albin to take a month or two here or there, or John to occasionally do one of his, batshit crazy but awesome little toy designs. And then maybe get inspired myself for what I can do. So for August, there are two components, as there have been for the last couple of months. Ooh, there's some stuff being dragged along here. And that is the barge itself will be what the vehicle drivers get. Now, this is considerably larger than the Aurochs. It's 1 inch wider, but it is covered. We have brand new engine blocks here. And we also have a little cool variant of the lifter section. Previously the Overseer. Actually, why don't we turn off the lights, and I will also unhide the not the star mule, that's not what I wanted. The Aurochs command module over there. So this is what the old version looked like. And then we have the Aurochs barge. So you can get a decent idea. These are some earlier design prototypes of how big we could make it. This is the finished version, which you can find as one of in the starter pack for the tribes. So if you've never backed our tribe before, you get this whole thing along with a bunch of other stuff for $5. Don't know how it works with the GridForge tier. So you can kind of see, though, the size difference here. We can look into the interior as well. You can see that the old version, if we just take a cross section, it's all open lock. It had this rather unnecessary channel in the middle. That I'm swapping out for GridForge, and it will be a separate frame, so you'll have some control here. The thing that it won't be, unfortunately, backwards compatible. Well, not entirely true. You could put these engines on here, no worries. You can park this ship on there, no worries. What you can't do is put this on there, and a part of it is the width, so it probably doesn't matter that much anyway. But I wanted to add GridForge to it. You can also see there's a significant increase in detail. Like, there's not much whole detail here. There's more that I'm working on here as I go. I don't want to spend too much more time in it, but like, we've got a back cabin with, some more detail on the wall. And now this will be split so that it can print flat like so. I was messing around with a different engine combination because, this was one of the downsides of the older version. It had this weird sort of back cavity that really was asking a lot of not having supports. It didn't print great, and we didn't have much detail on the interior because it's just too big of a project. Really, this is too big of a project for what I would consider a regular vehicle release. However, sometimes I overwork on things because I really enjoy the design, and this is definitely one of those things. So I thought it would be really cool to, do a variant of this, the Overseer, that's a bit longer. I joked about naming it the Magpie because it swoops down and grabs the barge. And this way it's like whether or not you own an Aurochs Starlifter or you own an Aurochs with this little craft, whatever it ends up being named, it will be usable in the module that we're putting out. And it is actually just a full mini campaign for StarQuest. It has at least 5 missions with, I think there'll be at least 1 optional mission. And one of the ways that people will be able to... See, we never wanted to make Expendable expensive, because we know things are tough at the moment. So we're going to set the price point for all of the terrain for GridForge that we're putting out. So there's a whole bunch of kits. This is only a little bit of it, because there's actually more of the mine scene. Sorry, that was there to copy. So everything you see here, aside from the Electo, and the miniatures is going to be included, along with even more terrain variants for the sort of mining site. It's quarry would maybe be a better way to describe it. There will be a bit more GridForge terrain geared towards this included next month as well. So all of this design for $40, or if you're a triber, about $30 instead. The amount of work we put in, the amount of content that's going in, I kind of feel like that's a massive deal. It'll be 250 plus USTL files, including where we've used it, the 3MF files to do color. So yeah, I just and then of course we'll have the sort of larger version that I don't know will be in the $80 to $90 range for people that haven't been tribers, that are missing all these vehicles. They'll include all of this, including like the Typhon, the Electo. The Typhon is mentioned, and I might do like a bonus mission. Maybe I'll do the bonus mission as a stretch goal if we get to that point, but we're not going to start with Frontiers doesn't have a target that you want to get to, but I think we'll be setting the unlocks, they're called, on Frontiers to fairly high, so that they start at like 15,000 or something like that. Ideally, when we do a campaign these days, we just can't afford to put the, start at $5,000 or something and go up from there anymore with the stretch goals. We try to get the target closer to what, to cover half the production costs usually. Something like that. We're always compromising. We're always trying new things. And hopefully people feel like this is a better way to support us, that it's, more affordable than, say, we put out 6 amazing ships for Asia Fleet, but I mean, 150 euros is a lot to ask. Did we put in the work for that? I think so. But especially by the time everything's finished. But it's still a lot to ask people. So, hopefully we're trying to appeal to a new audience of OPR players. OPR is meant to help promote just a little bit by notifying their followers. In theory, there's 10,000 active people, about 40,000 active players. How many of them play StarQuest? How many of them are interested in our stuff? I don't know. But I'm willing to bet this will help keep the lights on until after the holidays, when I can return to, working full-time on this again. A bit late, had to go get groceries. It happens, mate, it happens. Besides, this was a surprise stream. Well, not that much of a surprise, but it was announced 40 minutes before, so. You really dig the new engines? They're a lot more in-universe, and I could upscale them for my Mantis version of the Chimera Pathfinder. Yes, I'm sure you could. And they would look fairly decent if they were larger. I would almost I think if you could manage to delete the RCS section before you upscale it, it might look better. I don't know. I can't think about that too much. Let's continue working on what I was working on beforehand. So if you have any questions about this ship, about any of the stuff that I've been talking about, happy to answer them. I know I've done a huge info dump there. So thanks for sticking with me. Hopefully for the long-time fans, you'll have a better impression of where things are at, why the delays, an explanation. I know I don't owe anyone an explanation for it, but I feel like I do anyway. So yeah, I don't know if eventually I'll talk more about the details, or whether it's even relevant to people. I think the important thing is that you communicate, that you're honest, and I think for a long time I've kind of been ignoring some of the signs that I need to take a little bit of a break. And it's not even a big break, it's just a case of, I know this year I can't give Persephone the love it needs to be what I want it to be. So it makes more sense to pour some of that love instead into Expendable and the hopefully approved Traveller project. Tentatively, Mongoose have said they like the idea. We just need to hammer out the details because technically it does pass into next year by the time I finish delivery. Or I think it'll be this year. It's just a case of like if we did anything with the tribes and Traveller. I could see us putting out a GridForge of a new ship every month because we're just doing a GridForge, not the hull. And then, you know, some custom tiles that you could use to further customize those ships. So, yeah. Getting Mongoose to respond is an important milestone. They usually do respond relatively quickly, but, yeah. It does... The approval process for things takes longer, but I think in this case it would be like if it's deck plans, it's like we literally take your existing deck plans, done. You know, customize it with these tiles instead of these tiles. It's not as much. Alex Klesson says, I remember you joking several times that you ended up relaxing by doing some more work. Yes, this happens every year. I really don't think it will happen this one. I'll probably just play games for 2 weeks straight. Or maybe like we'll go for a little bit of a trip. The wife, myself now, our fur baby. Maybe, I don't know, camping or something. But just to sort of like reset, I guess. I don't love that the campaign's on August 14th because that'll still be in the middle of my holidays. But, you know, we're just in that sort of situation where we're kind of in the middle, in a transition period of sorts. So it's just going to take a little bit of time to adjust, and I think it's all going to work out. I just need a rest. It's as simple as that. Just need a rest. All right, let's try and get this part a little bit more up to snuff before we end the stream. So I've gotten half of it done. Despite the fact that I don't love the way we solved some of these parts, we're not going to change too much. You know, I could imagine redoing the landing gear in the future, but I'm not going to tackle that at this point in time. What I am going to focus on instead is just making this look a little bit more like it fits in with this style. So some of it is simple as just like, maybe we'll take some of this paneling. Oh, we've got a slight deformation there. That's probably present on most parts, unfortunately. Yep. Oh well. There we go. So let's just get it out of expert mode and back into where I can see a few tools. So we want this section to look the same on the opposite side. So let's start with this and rip out just the circle part. Oh, let's go back a few steps. Select around here. Select around here. And do a few in here as well. Probably easier to select all and then shrink the selection rather than... Oops. Let's see. We can definitely take this from multiple objects if we have to. So let's move this over. See if we need to delete anything like this edge. And see if we can't snap this into place. Keeping it aligned. So... this looks slightly shorter. Let's see if this will align if we just do this. Not quite, which... Wait, yes it does. Awesome. So we know now where this wants to be. We need to make a few modifications here, so I think the easiest thing to do is to just delete some of this geometry that we're going to rebuild. And then obviously the other thing we want to do is take out all of this. So let's select along here. I think we wanted to go, I think we could go here. Wow, that worked out better than I thought it was going to. Sometimes things work out after all. Nice. I've considered ripping out. This will be the last thing I do because maybe it is a case that we don't need to worry so much. But at the moment, we've got open lock clips on the sides and GridForge clips down the bottom. Actually, having GridForge is going to reinforce the ship a lot more because it's offset. So I've made it in such a way that if you look here, you can see that these are overlapping, so that you're going to get some strength just by virtue of using these parts. The other thing too is, since I think someone was it Shergel that came up with a nail clip that you can thread through there? I'm not sure.
No, I think it was someone else. Can't remember.
Doug, maybe?
Maybe.
I apologize if I missed who it was, but the nail clips now let you put a clip through this hole anyway, and that means that you can kind of secure it in place. So I don't think we're going to need the strength that we used to need. So a part of me wants to replace the open lock clip holes as well, because these are quite thin and we're missing a little bit of detail here. Now this is interesting. Some of these deformations are indicating to me that we don't... Let's see, let's delete this. I'm not sure these are flat, which means we might have to work elsewhere on this. So the question is it the circle or the square? That's the problem. So the first thing I'm going to try and do, and it's hard to keep in window, is to scale. That looks like it's at least fitting. And then we just want to snap this to this ring here. Wait, we've got grid snap on. Okay, that wouldn't have helped. Okay, so let's make that snap to there. Now if I deselect this, that looks flat now, which indicates to me that it wasn't sitting where it was supposed to, which is an unfortunate thing because it means I probably have to change it on the other parts as well. But there are some benefits to getting rid of these clips, and that is just that we can go deeper with these mechanics, make it feel like a little bit more machine-like, maybe bore in just a tiny bit more detail. Let's see. The only question I always have is how I mind control people to buy my stuff. I wish I knew. I really do. Let's see. Alex says, I remember you joking several times that you ended up... Oh, right, yes. Already read that one. If you want a relaxing play, we can wait for you on the Helldivers to spread democracy. Blasted says, you should also relax by playtesting someone's Starship game. Just kidding, take care of yourself. If not, John will steal your identity, possibly wearing your face too, or using you as a puppet. See, this is the way you know I'm still real, because if I was John, I wouldn't need a break. Because I'd be American and a robot. But no, androids have feelings too. No, it was the Dragon's Rest, folks. No. Dragon's Rest always gets a rest. It's just not always the one you need. Alright, so how are we going to fix this? That's annoying. And the weird thing is it looks fairly flat here. So I don't know if it really is an issue. Let's grab the four corners here. Thought that was an end gone for a second. And then we're going to move the pivot point down, and we're just going to scale, and it looks like nothing moved, so I don't know what was going on there. Unless it's a case of the ring itself is the problem. So let's test this out and scale that there. Nothing's moved. I don't know what's going on. That is a good and a bad thing. Because I I don't know how to fix it. Maybe it's the case that it's actually... Yeah, I don't know what the case is. It's bonkers. Maybe it's a Maya bug for all I know. Let's keep going, because I'd like to at least get this side in. And, you know what? Let's go ahead and... We do have a little bit of intersection here. I think we're going to put in the GridForge clips instead. I keep calling them that. They're supported clips, of course, but... so let's just duplicate this and grab a clip that we can use as our reference geometry. Now, the way this works with GridForge, it's actually been designed so that the upper edge here, if you put this halfway through this clip, you should be able to align it to OpenLock. So if we put this here, and you happen to have a front that was compatible with it, that uses OpenLock, and you have a supported clip there, the conversion clip should fit just nicely right there. So let's go here, and it's going to become apparent almost immediately, I think, the benefits of doing it. You can see here how it might be faint, but there's this line here that's just slightly, let me move it over here, just slightly clipping through, which is the edge of this on the other side. So the wall gets very thin where the indentation is. Don't know what that was all about. And by moving to supported clip holes, we have so much more depth that we can work with. That's what I was bunging on about just a few moments ago. So I'm going to duplicate this so we have a backup copy, because I'm going to want to change it to the entire ship by the time I'm finished with it. Now I am creating a little bit more work for myself than is probably necessary, but at the same time, I mean, this is how I got exactly where I am right now, isn't it? Really thinking about it. Let's do a loop here and a loop there so we can kind of match it. Actually, that one probably doesn't need one. We're just going to come along and start matching the geometry, getting rid of anything we don't need. So I'm going to delete that side, and then we're just going to move or delete this geometry so it's going to align with this one. Let's go there, that can probably be there, that can be there. This can come down to there. Hot?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Oh my god.
It is quite balmy.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. This is a little bit more form-fitting now. Far from perfect, but it's just going to create a much better seal. No, not the animal. The R&B singer.
Ah! I can't imitate.
What, you can't be kissed by a rose on the grave? Come on.
Rather, I can't sing, I guess.
Oh, well. Then yes, probably best to spare us your talents. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. Or as my old great Auntie Claire used to say, I don't know what that is, but I don't like it. Quite the character. Picture... What is it? Selma. Patty and Selma. She was just like one of them. And she used to own a diner. Which do exist in Australia, strangely enough. They're not that common though, they're mostly out in the country.
Huh.
Or a roadhouse, if you'd prefer.
That sounds nice. Makes me think of some kind of Tarantino movie. What's it called?
There is a film with Patrick Swayze called Roadhouse.
No, I think it's...
Well, that's more about punching
Okay.
and also really, really weird romance scenes.
Uh-huh.
With acrobatic bouncing.
Oh.
Alright, so we've integrated that. This one can get pulled down to here. We can see we've got a little bit of aberrant geometry here we need to adjust. I'm just going to delete it. That should be a save face to delete altogether. Let's see. Seal, I remember him from the 80s. Wasn't Seal the 90s though?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was the 90s.
Songs being popular when I grew up, but not super much. It might be the decline, maybe.
In the decline?
Uh,
We're living in the decline. What are you talking about?
No. It's the career
Korea?
career of Seal
Oh,
was in a decline, maybe.
I don't know. It was, before he married Heidi Klum, so
Mm-hmm.
I think he did all right.
Yeah.
I hear that the bird is the word. Yeah, I've heard that too. Sadly, more times than I care to admit. It's got to be in the I usually say it's like the second most annoying song in the world.
Mm-hmm. The first.
Maybe the third, actually. According to me. So, the first one would be Star Trekking. Which had a kind of cool plasticine film clip. Yeah, claymation. But was very annoying. And in a similar tone and voice to The Bird is the Word. But no, for me, it's Queen's Bicycle. Because my friends used it to torture me because they knew I didn't like the song. And then I scratched my CD so that the song wouldn't play. And instead, the scratch actually just looped the bicycle section of the song. So, contributing to even more torture. Now, nothing against Queen. Queen's a great band. And I'm sure for many people that's a great song. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's an unofficial sequence to Fat Bottom Girls. But for me, it's pure torture. Alright, so let's fill this in again. And at the moment, I'm not really looking for the fine details I was discussing. I think I'll change the shader now before I actually make that triangulated. So let's triangulate that. So we've got all of these extra lines in, just making sure we're controlling those n-gons. Let's fill this in. And I think we're actually running on fairly decent timing to, at least get this sealed.
Man, I almost want to
Throwback.
Rose song now.
Well, no one's stopping you. You have headphones.
Oh, I accidentally sang along. I'm so sorry.
Yes, traumatize the few viewers we have. I'm actually surprised to see so many people on a Monday. It's nice to see people. And to feel that I'm not just, there's someone actually listening or interested in the way that I work, which, I don't know, I kind of find a little humbling in a sense. That'll be the wrong shader. I don't know what mechanism it is that makes Maya decide whether or not it's going to shade something with Lambert 1 or standard Surface 1.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good question.
Alright, let's bridge across here.
Oh, no, I remember.
Are you listening to the Seal song?
Yes.
Do you know what year it is?
94.
94, yeah, that's what I thought.
It's like an official video combined with a Batman movie, Batman Forever.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Wait, Batman Forever.
I think so.
Oh, Batman and Robin came after that one, right? Because I was thinking, like, no, isn't it the Smashing Pumpkins? But that's Batman and Robin, I think. Yeah, the end is the beginning, is the end was the theme song. Or at least at the end of the film. Oh god, those Schumacher films were so bad. Alright, so we're pretty close to a seal here. Sounds like Albert managed to restrain himself from making seal noises.
Yeah. It was difficult.
I know. I could almost hear the cogs going in your head.
Yes.
So I'm kind of feeling like, how do we cheat so that this looks good? I'm going to do a trick where I create additional geometry, and I think this will be the last thing we do on stream today. So let's just create a polygon, and then I'm going to select this face, and if I've been a sensible boy, there'll be some kind of method to the madness on this angle. It already looks 45 degrees to me, so I'm just going to see, let's try minus 0.3 and then minus 0.3 actually. So that almost lined up. Oh, that is so annoying. It's not quite on the dot. Or the worst thing is, it is here, but it's not down there. Okay, let's double check. See, because what I was looking to do is create a line there. And maybe I will. I think this will be close enough. Usually when we're talking about these kind of tolerances, it doesn't matter that much, but I'm going to do that. So that's flush. Now we can delete our control object. We can move this into position here. And then we should, in theory, be able to... I think we're just going to do a simple append to polygon function. Of course, it's the wrong shader color. And there we go. So we now have a seal on this half. It should be mirrored, if I'm not incorrect. So let's just put the standard surface on there. I'm probably not done. Well, actually, I know I'm not done because this looks too simplistic still. But for example, if we make sure the pivot point is moved out, duplicate this, we will scale it -1 in the X for an opposite. And there we go. At least we've got something that looks reasonable that can replace that part. So technically I could combine that, it would be printable, and yeah, I think we'd be in a fairly good space. I just don't want to, you know, give you guys something that looks like this on one end and then like this on the other. But I do feel confident that between the GridForge grid and yeah, the GridForge grid by itself is going to provide enough additional support that we can definitely use these smaller clips. And that will also mean, you know, less clip printing, because, you know, you can print 50 GridForge clips, supported clips in half an hour on a bamboo, or it'll take you like 2.5 hours to do 50 clips on, maybe longer, if it's open lock. So that's where we're at with that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk today. A lot of background insight into, you know, the decision making we've been making. You can probably already see from the reflectiveness of my forehead, it is getting quite hot in here. Maybe time to go home and relax a little bit soon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will try and stream again, maybe on Friday, but I don't know yet what the details will be. Try and keep up that stream, those strong numbers, so that we have one episode a week again. Since I missed last week, this is Friday's episode now, today on Monday. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be back. Thank you for listening, and take care, guys. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.